G'day all. G'day y'all.
That's a nice combo. Good day, y'all.
G'day y'all.
That is the Australian in Georgia.
I'm
Hey,
all,
this is Sean with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And right now, we want to hear your story. We had our first story published last month. It was a heartbreaker about losing in the city finals. Check it out when you get a chance. But we want to hear your story as well. Something that was awesome, something that was terrible. Just tell us a story and we might share it on the podcast. Today is 10 Minutes of Tennis with Justin Yo, Australian in Puerto Rico. We are talking about the state of the game. Where is the game now? And what's next? What's next? Where's it going? Justin, can we predict the future? We're going to ask you, we're going to find out, and we won't actually know if you're right for a long time. So that's the fun part about predicting the future. But where is the game now? Let's start there. And are we talking about my game, your game, Novak's game, the game as a whole? Where are we starting?
wow. Okay. Well, I wrote a bit of a list for us, and I figured what I'll do is I'll go through some of these things, and you can tell me where you want me to elaborate. And then I've got just a little tip as to, if you're a junior developing, or even you're an adult that's wanting to change your game and grow a little bit more. I've got a couple little tips there that you've got to make sure you do from here on. Um, but
Love it.
um, uh, Things I wrote down. Late bloomer has a shot. All rounder, serve and third ball, returns deep in the court, variation of grip, mid court, front court. College is the step to pro. Movement efficiency is key, and character is monumental.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
lot. And as we're recording this and we're live, so we can say it, we watched the final. Well, you and I at
yeah.
least did watch the final the other day at the French Open.
Mhm.
And a lot of, I think, those ideas send me back to those thoughts when we think of the guy who hasn't quite won a major at 27 years old. Yet you and I were discussing ahead of time. We think he's got a legitimate shot
Mhm.
in we'll say in August or September at least.
Mhm.
And then the character matters there. So I'll go to that one of the last ones you mentioned about the character and
Mhm.
how strong you have to be to
Mhm.
take the losses. I think now I think back to a Coria loss in 2004 in the French in a match
Mhm.
that he should have won, and then we never heard from the guy again. We think
Mhm.
of the book Andre wrote, where he talks about the losses and how devastating sometimes it was. He just didn't want to play anymore. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot there. I'd love to start with the character. I think that is monumental, as you say.
Well, I mean, they kept talking about Carlos Alcaraz saying that, you got to enjoy the struggle. You got to enjoy the struggle. You got to enjoy the fight. You got to enjoy the battle. And if you looked at the amount of variety and everything he gave, a lot of it came down to his character that kept going. And
Mm-hmm.
then I got to give Zverev credit. I mean, the guy would have dumped his head years ago with all the things. Like, do you know, like how many line calls Alcaraz hit on a recovery shot when he had advantage?
Mm-hmm.
He hit a line and he just kept going. And then the 2-all could have been a 2-all in the five when the line call was out and they pulled it in, and that would have been break point to make it 2-all in the fifth. And I mean, the guy just took so many different hits. The guy's getting a massage on his legs every single change of ends. I mean, Zverev to me, like both of those guys showed a lot of resilience, a lot of character, a lot of great composure. And as far as I'm concerned, great future for where the sport is, the way they presented themselves with all that was going on, the wind, the sun, the rain. I mean, there was so much stuff going on all the time in that final. And it was just tennis. It was no like real solid drama. The game, the stroke of the ball, the strikes of the game, the variety, all of that was the drama. And I would have been, if I was in the stadium, I think I would have been on my edge of a seat the whole time. And the change of momentum as well. in so many different areas. So it just shows character is a monumental area. And I bring that up just for the reason that I don't see sometimes in this day and age, nothing against parents as much, nothing against society as much, but society is different now with credit cards and Google. I call in coaching Google as the why. So every time a kid goes to do something, they ask why, and you're like, just do it. But they have to ask why because they've grown up in the Google world, and you have to learn how to give them the why so you get the buy-in, and then they'll do it. So very important to work on that character part of the why, because otherwise they're lost in the clouds trying to figure it out. And once they figure it out, they move on. And so the why is big in this day and age of kids. And then the other one is the credit card thing. And the credit card thing, I always say, I call them the plastic generation, is they always get what they want versus what they need, because it's like, but I want it, oh, okay, I can pay for it then. Back in the days, we weren't able to do that. So you had to work for it, or you had to wait for it, or you had to earn it, you know. So it's, monumentally, I say about character is putting kids into circumstances where it digs them and makes them earn things and makes them do things and makes them, even to the sake of chores, just anything that forces the whole concept of earning something and working for something is critical. Patrick Maratoglu talks about it all the time. I love that guy. To me, he's got the right attitude. He's also one of the great leaders of the sport right now. And he talks about the struggle as well, the character, even his own character. He said, he's had all these issues till he's got to this point. And now, he feels like he's coming into his own skin and as to what he's doing this late in his career in his mid-50s, So character is, to me, it's a big one. If players are going to make it through. To balance that out, because you say character, I said late bloomer at the start. If you look at the top 100, the average age now is a lot older in the men and in the females. You can go back decades, and it was a lot younger in the females. Now it's a lot older in the females. So that gives us a shot, like a good 16-year-old or a good 18-year-old that's just on the cusp and is really just coming into their body and really starting to figure out the game, and they have all the right attributes, then college could be a real great stepping stone for them to go pro.
We had a good conversation with Marcus Rucci about that recently, where he talked about maybe the gap year being, and the USTA would have to support this in the States, of course, but the gap year maybe being after college to be able to help some of these guys go from college and into the pros, and they have a chance because they just need a little more work, a little more focus, where they could get there. We look at a lot of these guys that have come out of college, and I even look at a guy like Cam Norrie, and I look at his game, I'm like, was he really top 10? And that guy had such a good year. Yeah. And how many players, Ben Shelton can work his way up into the top 15. Who knows how, what his upside is. Yeah. And some of those guys have a little extra help. I mean, Ben's got a former professional player, dad, and tennis coach, and that kind of helps, of course. But the character still has to be there. The late bloomer is okay. We don't always have to be on tour at 14 like a Auger Aliassime kind of player. But then you look at somebody like Richard Gasquet, who was on the cover of French Tennis Magazine at 10 years old as the next great, and he never quite gets there. So again, it's hard to predict the future.
Yeah, it's hard to predict the future, but I guess what my point is there's a bigger group of players that could actually make it there if they just understand they have an opportunity. They do have that option. You used to sort of say, well, by 12 and by 16, if you went this ranking and you went this level and you didn't track like this, and we're seeing, I mean, I can go through the top 20, if not the top 30, even top 50 players, not the most perfect technique, but physically are so unbelievable athletes and so tough. And on any given day, sometimes can be just on and just everything happens. There are, yes, in the top 10, some amazing technique, but there are still a big bunch of what I call animals in the below area that are coming up and are constantly, Alex the Demina. I mean, like he doesn't stroke the ball clean, technically wise, but man, can he grind it and play it out? And freakish enough with him, right? He's 6 foot, and I just looked it up. He's only 152
There's
pounds,
nothing to him.
right? 152, right? I'm 6 foot, and I'm in the 160s, and everyone tells me how lean I am.
Uh-huh.
That guy's 152 at 6 feet, so it just tells you he's like a little whippersnapper, and he can just do lots of great stuff. Um, but quick one because we're running out of time. But the all rounder, every junior should be trying to use every stroke. If there's anything that is absolutely clear right now from that French Open final, is the future is an all rounder. You've got to learn all the variations of grip. You've got to learn to be able to come forward. And when you come forward, you have to have variation of grip. It's very clear, right? Zverev came in, he tried to hit those drop shots, and he tried to hit the drop shot straight ahead instead of hitting the angle. I just sat there just like, what's going on here? This is number 4 in the world. Why doesn't he not know to hit the angle? He's got plenty more space. He's got the lower part of the net, and he's got more of a chance on the next ball. And he couldn't do it. So it, to me, says all round, like you need lots and lots of variation because that kind of habit would just happen normal if you practice every shot, learn every shot. And especially as a junior, you got nothing to lose. Just put it all into play until you get to 18 and over. Ivan Lendl, one of my biggest idols as a junior, he said he loved being a junior because when he became an adult, he went from 18 and under to 30 and under.
Yeah.
Right? So he said junior years is the fun years because you only have to play within 2 year gap every time. He was like, when I became 18 and over, it was 30 and under. And he was like, oh, that was so hard. He went from 18 to playing a 25, 26-year-old who's been playing on the tour for so many years. Yep. So he's like, son of a, this is tough, So, put it all in as much as possible in your junior years is what I'm pointing out. And, so mid-court, front court too, don't see enough of that practice. Don't see enough people working on it. Mid-court, front court. Like practice it. I mean, Djokovic does it a lot in his warm-ups where he's just slicing and dicing, so important. All of that as a junior development. And so for your adults, I think they could learn mid-court, front court. And what I find on the adult side is they don't have the movement pattern. They tend to hesitate and then run through the ball versus run and then balance and then finish the shot. So a lot of the time I find in the adults is it's their movement pattern that just needs to be corrected, not their technique. So I think that almost covered it all, right?
That's pretty good. Well, I would take as we finish another 12 minutes of tennis, we take the where we are as looking around and seeing what's happening, but then seeing the trends, and we say, okay, what's next? I think you're right. I think is the all-around player. I think the points are shorter this year than they were 15 years ago. And guys have figured out that if Nadal and Djokovic back in the day could just outlast everybody, well, now I'm going to sneak in and knock off a drop shot, or I'm going to drop volley, or I'm going to shorten the points because anybody now can kind of hang out and hit balls forever. These guys are so fit and so good. Now, that doesn't necessarily translate down to the social world or necessarily the junior world. But I do love the idea of all-around tennis. You want to work on things you don't usually work on. Don't just stick to your guns. Don't just stick to what you do well. Add a new shot. The modern game is moving toward being able to do anything and everything whenever you need to do it. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And it just says it all, too. You have to be an athlete.
Yeah.
No matter what. The sooner they get into physical, mental training of hard, whether it be gym, plyometrics, whatever it is, the sooner they get into that, the more physically tougher they're going to be, and they just have to be prepared to do it. Otherwise, that's the future, period.
I agree. Justin Yo, this has been 10 minutes of tennis, more like 14, but we won't say anything. I appreciate it, sir. We'll see you again next week. Thank you.
Free extras, y'all.
Freebies. You're welcome. See you guys.
See ya.